Hey, this is a new one. Have you ever been in church and realized, uh-oh, I got no cash for the collection plate? You're going to feel guilt, right, for a week. Well, now one church has made giving as easy as a quick swipe. Erica Hale from Prime News here to tell us more about the story. What a great idea.
Yeah, well, it's getting a lot of attention because you might think initially, say, oh, well, this is perfect. You know, I forget my money. I don't have my checkbook for the collection plate. I'm all set. One Georgia church is actually calling it a giving kiosk. Just bring the debit card on Sunday. Quick swipe. Don't worry about the envelope. There is the convenience, but a lot of debate, too, Chuck, about whether or not this is really just putting an ATM at church and whether it actually sends the wrong message. Oh, don't forget your money. You got to come with the money. It's
a little too unsubtle, if there's such a word. What does the congregation think about it?
Oh, well, there's a bit of a mixed reaction. We're actually going to speak to the pastor of this one church in Georgia where they call it a giving kiosk. Get a little more information on what the congregation is saying, also what other churches are saying, because as I understand it, there's been a fair amount of reaction from around the country, actually, about this one.
But you could keep your receipts for IRS deductions at the end of the year that way. You
I hadn't thought about that one.
Exactly, yeah.
See? And then that encourages you to do more than just toss some change in there.
Exactly. Good story. All right, we'll see you soon. Thanks.
You know, as a nation, it turns out that we are enormously generous. We are especially giving when it comes to our places of worship. But installing an ATM in a church, does that go a little bit too far? That's a question we want to tackle today in our new daily segment. We are taking a look at hard-hitting topics like this one. Topics that deal with religion, values, morality, ethics, asking the tough questions that maybe you think of, but you don't necessarily want to say out loud. Well, who better to do it for you? Mike Galanos. Gee, this one, I don't know.
You're a little funny on this one, aren't you?
I'm not sure how I feel about it. Part of me thinks this is kind of tacky.
And some say, hey, this is just the church changing with the times. Here's what we're talking about here. An ATM in the lobby of a church. Erica kind of touched on it. We're encouraged to give, really, in all the major faiths. One of the 5 pillars of Islam, tithing's mentioned in the Old Testament. But again, we're focusing on a Christian church that's put an ATM in the lobby. Couple of things to note here. You can't get money. It's only there for you to give. Bottom line idea here is no one carries cash anymore. So why not make it convenient for everyone just to pull out the debit and give?
I thought it was kind of cool. I mean, it's, you know, a lot of times, you know, we'll come to church and I'm like, man, I forgot my check, or, you know, I didn't have enough cash, or, you know, you definitely want to give back to the Lord what's rightfully His.
All right, that lady goes to Stevens Creek Community Church in Augusta, Georgia. The pastor of that church is Dr. Marty Baker. It was his idea to institute the ATM. Marty, thanks for joining us. And first, I want to give you a little anecdotal story here. Talking to one of our producers, she said, if I walk into a church and there's an ATM, I'm walking out. How do you reassure people that this is really the way to go and this is not tacky or disrespectful?
Well, I think one thing you've got to understand, it's our heart here at Stevens Creek just to help people donate to something they really believe in. And definitely it needs to be presented in a way that's a God-honoring way. And when you say the word ATM, yes, it's not an automated teller machine, but it's an automatic tithing machine. We call it a giving kiosk here at Stevens Creek.
Okay.
And one of our issues here at the church is that we work very hard to tear down the barriers between the church and the culture. At Stevens Creek, we do it with our music styles, our drama, the dress style we have, or multimedia, or whatever. So it's only natural for us to bring our tithes and offerings to the Lord in a way that is very natural, and that's with our bank card.
And Mark, you want to be relevant to where people are. Many people do carry the debit card, but you look at from the outside looking in. I was doing a web search, and one thing I found somewhat humorous here, that there was a top 10 list, kind of a David Letterman thing, top 10 signs you're at a bad church. Number 7 is there's an ATM in the lobby. Is this really how God wants to be represented?
Oh, well, you've got to understand that when you give to the Lord, that has changed over time. In the early days, they would bring vegetables or grains to the Lord. Can you imagine the stir they had in the temple when they started bringing coins? And then what about when they started bringing paper money? And then how about you didn't even bring money, you brought checks? Well, this is just part of the evolution of the financial system, that we bring our bank card and we still are giving out of our heart. We're still giving for the right purpose, but we're just doing it with plastic.
Okay. There are plenty of criticisms. You and I talked about it on the phone. You look on the web. One of them has got to hurt you within the faith community when they're citing biblical verses, when they're talking about Matthew, where Jesus is talking about God's house being a den of thieves, and you being likened to a money changer. And you got to answer this on a couple of fronts, because you and your wife run the business Secure Give that sells machines to other churches. How are you reassuring people on that front that you're not just there to get their money?
Well, you've got to look at the heart of the church and the heart of the ministry. We're here to help people, and receiving tithes and offerings are just the way that we can better serve the people of our community. Now, about Secure Give, you've got to understand that. Secure Give is a for-profit company. Stevens Creek Church is a not-for-profit company. When you look in the Bible, you'll see the people like the Apostle Paul. He had a for-profit company he was a tent maker. And so throughout America, there are many pastors that are bivocational pastors. And so this would fall in line with Scripture, like the Apostle Paul, and not necessarily go against it. So, yes, Secure Give is a vital part, and its mission is just to help other congregations reach their stewardship potential by offering this technology so that their members can donate to something they believe in.
All right. Dr. Marty Baker, pastor of Stevens Creek Community Church. We know from at least the few people we heard from your church, they're liking it there. And again, you've answered the criticisms pretty well. Dr. Baker, thanks again. And we want to know what you think. Email us at cnn.com/prime news. Erica, you and I talked about kind of funny with it, but a couple of years ago, you look at some of the numbers, they had sold about 6, 7 machines. They have now sold 40 machines to other churches. Me, myself, I don't have cash or a checkbook on me. I have a debit card right now.
I know, it's
so
true.
Like,
every day when you and I go to get coffee, we do it with our debit cards, not cash. It's true. We'll definitely make you think.